Task 2 inside Network Services 2. Understanding NFS. What is NFS? NFS stands for Network File System and allows the system to share directories and files with others over a network. By using NFS, users and programs can access files on remote systems almost as if they were local files. It does this by mounting all or a portion of a file system on a server. The portion of a file system that is mounted can be accessed by clients with whatever privileges are assigned to each file. How does NFS work? We don't need to understand the technical exchange in too much detail to be able to exploit NFS effectively. However, if this is something that interests you, I would recommend this resource, right? And here we see the docs of Oracle, which are always great. So if you want to read more on Oracle docs, how the NFS service work, you can read all about it. First, the client will request to mount a directory from a remote host on a local directory just the same way it can mount a physical device. The mount service will then act to connect to the relevant mount daemon using RPC. The server checks if the user has permissions to mount whatever directory has been requested. It will then return a file handle which uniquely identifies each file and directories that is on the server. If someone wants to access a file using NFS, an RPC call is placed to NFSD, the NFS daemon on the server. This call takes parameters such as the file handle, the name of the file to be accessed, user's ID, and group ID. These are used in determining access rights to the specified file. This is what controls user permissions, that is read and write of files. What runs NFS? Using NFS protocol, you can transfer files between computers running Windows and other non-Windows operating systems such as Linux, macOS, or Unix. A computer running Windows Server can act as an NFS file server for other non-Windows client computers. Likewise, NFS allows a Windows-based computer running Windows Server to access files stored on a non-Windows NFS server. More information. Here are some resources that explain the technical implementations and work of the NFS network file systems in more detail than I have covered here. And here we have actually different, we have a wiki, we have data and NFS source forge. If you want to read more about them, you can access the links. Answer the questions below. What does NFS stand for? Right over here. Network File System. What process allows an NFS client to interact with a remote directory as though it was a physical device? Mounting. As you can see over here, first the client will request to mount a directory from a remote host on a local directory, just the same way it can mount a physical device. The mount service will then act to connect to the relevant mount in daemon using RPC, remote procedure call. Cool. What does NFS use to represent files and directories on the system? It is a file handle. The server checks if the user has permissions to mount whatever directory has been requested. It will then return a file handle which uniquely identifies each file and directory that is on the server. What protocol does NFS use to communicate between the server and the client? RPC. If someone wants to access file using NFS, an RPC call is placed to NFSD, the NFS daemon on the server. What two pieces of user data does the NFS server take as parameters for controlling user permissions? Format is parameter 1 and then parameter 2. If we go to the same place, user ID, group ID. Can a Windows NFS server share files with a Linux client? Yes. Can a Linux NFS server share files with a Mac client? Yes. What is the latest version of NFS released in 2016 but is still up to date as of 2020? This will require external research. If we go to wiki, NFS version 4.2 RFC 7862 was published in November 2016 with new features including server-side clone and copy, application input-output advice, sparse files, space reservation, application data block, ADB labeled NFS with sec label that accompanies accommodates any Mac security system, and 2 new operations for PNFS, layout terror and layout stats. Awesome.